Welcome to Holding 101, a fast and quick and dirty introduction to how to move assets, or how assets are moved in Eve. The slide viewer is always a bit strange in the start. Did it change to page 2?
Yeah, it changed. No worries.
Okay, it actually didn't change it for myself. I'm like watching it on both. Okay, so yeah. What is holding? Well, the previous slide kind of answered it. It's essentially when you want to move assets in this game, like it could be anything, ships, modules, materials, yeah, even plaques, like anything that you can own, basically stuff. If you move them, it's holding. However, when you talk about holding, you mainly look at it as something. Well, it's more specialized. That you're moving more than, let's say, just one ship or something like that. It's more of a activity than you would call it holding. So this is my main profession in Eve. It's like I really love it. And the reason is like I'm better to explain this in memes because that's how things are these days with the war and everything. So most of you guys have seen this one, right? Is there anyone who has not seen this one before?
My comment on hauling that Plaques: never ever haul Plaques. Never ever.
Yeah, let's say that for now. Never haul Plaques. There are actually legit reasons to hold Plaques, and I might touch upon them in 102. But for this course, never hold Plaques. You can activate remotely, and you can redeem them wherever you are. So okay, let's continue. If you see this, you've probably seen this picture, right? Is there anyone who hasn't seen this? Like just type in chat. Okay. Well, it's a very funny picture, and it kind of depicts the sandbox where someone likes to build a sandcastle. Other people like to, well, tear down other people's sandcastles. Really? You can't see Imgur pictures in your country. Ars, what country are you from?
It's Turkey, Istanbul.
No, not on the slideshow. I'm actually gonna go a little bit away from the slideshow right now. Okay, that's okay. I should put this on the slideshow for next time. I'm sorry, I didn't actually think about this, but it's just the introduction. No big matters. Yeah, okay, sorry, but okay, so let's just continue. So there are basically two players in Eve. I don't really agree with that. There is like a third kind of player, and I feel I'm a bit more in that regard, which are the players that kind of profit on the other players that keep blowing each other up. I move the ships for them so they can blow it up, and I also speculatively sell them high for a high price where they want them, when they want them, and buy it low when they have their fire sales. So that basically brought me into holding, is because I like the market in Eve where everything is made by other players, and it just feels so dynamic, and everything everything you do in EVE kind of has a consequence because assets are permanently destroyed and the value is really dependent on the demand right there and then, which makes a very interesting game in and by itself, the EVE economic game. I've been holding for over a year, and I've been in a bit, at least 2 different holding corporations in my time as well. I've been in Red Fog, and I'm currently a member of PushX again. I've actually been a member of PushX before, and I stopped being a member, and now I'm back there again. I'm not going to give much reasons for that, but I've done a lot of holding. I have like 50,000 completed contracts, which is quite a lot. So if we just go back to the slideshow. So this ties perfectly into the reasons for holding. A lot of people make a holding out for personal use where they just want to get their doctrine ship for the next big fleet, something among those lines. Some people like to do industry of any kind, actually, or PI. So that's a very valid reason for people to hold. There is also holding more related to operations. This is like often more on a corporation level, where the corporation is staging somewhere. Is there anyone here who participated in the Operation E-UNI Horde, where we were bashing POCOs? This is quite a few. This was there are probably players here who are not EVE University as well. So this was a big operation where EVE University staged in a system that is about 20 jumps from where we usually have our campuses. And we stayed there for 1 week trying to hit the assets of a high-sec war decking corporation named Pirate. And we had to adapt the doctrines there and do so there was a lot of moving of assets needed to be done, and that is a prime example of kill customs office. That's cool. So that was a prime example of operation holding. The third one is the contract holding, and that is the probably the first type of holding you hear about when you enter EVE, that you can hold for other people, get paid. So that's essentially what it is. You have public contracts and you have non-public contracts. I'm going to go more in detail what contract holding is. And the last part is what I've done the most in this game to make good ISK, and that is speculative holding, where you combine holding and marketing, where you buy something low and you sell high. And for me, it's kind of boring to sit and station trade and do that. So I buy low somewhere in space and then I sell high somewhere else. That question is very good. I'm actually going to talk about Holders Channel. I'm barely going to touch on Holders Channel later. It's a very good resource to find public contracts that are very good and can give you nice profit. So I would definitely recommend that. It's honestly a lot of the contracts there are way better than you get when being in a holding corporation. So yeah, definitely check those out. However, I would never recommend anyone to start their holding career by doing public contracts. And the reason for that is there is a very high risk compared to the reward. So you need to at least have some experience in holding to know what risk you're taking when doing that. Tiger, did that answer your question? Okay, let's go into ships that are specialized for holding. If you guys minimize your slide viewer and open the ship tree on the Neocom, is there anyone here who does not know how to open the ship tree on the Neocom? Can you X up? Okay, Aquil, on your Neocom, that is the bar on the left. There is one quadrat, I would say, with like a small symbol. Yeah. Okay, so the way the ship tree works is that it's essentially a view of all the ships in the game. And in the upper left, when you have opened the ship tree, you can choose what faction you can choose a faction, and then you will see all the ships for that faction. So let's just do open Galenta for example purposes. Can anyone tell me in lecture if you cannot find this, if you cannot open Galenta in the ship tree? Okay, that sounds wonderful. So holding ships, or industrials as they are often called, have their separate branch in the ship trees of the four major factions. That is DMR, Galante, Caldari, and Minmatar. So they have like a separate branch that is at the bottom of the tree. It starts with the shuttle, which is not really a holding ship. It's just move yourself. But the next part is where it gets interesting. You have industrials, and the first industrials you find are the so-called tier 1 industrials, and they are very, very fast to train into. Actually, newer characters today start with racial industrial 1, so you can already fly these ships when you start a new character. What is common for T1 industrials is that yes, they can move stuff, but it's also like moving stuff in a bag made out of wet paper. Literally, they are really bad for actually surviving the harsh environment of EVE Online. They're very hard to use and not lose your stuff in. So, but this is where holding. People start with holding, and if you're careful, I have a rule that you can follow with what you hold. Yeah. you lost a lot of badgers. That is actually a lot of people who start Caldari say that. You're not the first who has lost a lot of badgers. I have personally lost a lot of e-tron Mark V. Yes. So if we go to the Galante Federation and we look at the industrials, the Galante is a bit special. They have 5 different ships down there. But in general, if we look at what every major faction league has, they have a somewhat low volume ship that is somewhat fast, and that is and for the Galante that is the Nereus, and they have a ship that has a much larger cargo hold, but is also quite slow, and is for the Galante it's the e-tron Mark V. Good job, May. Good job. Most people tend to start their career, at least in hauling, by losing some T1s. Well, you jinxed it. Well, maybe he's already flying T2s, which are a lot better. Yeah, to my back to what I was talking about. So they have two different kinds, where one is a bit faster and the other is a bit slower, but has larger cargo hold. If we open the compare tool, now people probably don't know how or where this is. So if you go on the neocon bottom in the upper left, and then you find on the first, you don't have to go in any of the folders, just go down to what's called the compare tool. So if you, is there anyone who cannot find the compare tool right now? X up in lecture if you can't find the compare tool. Okay, that seems like everyone got it. So when you have the compare tool open, how it works is you can drag items in it and it will compare them. So if you drag a Nereus from the ship tree into the compare tool, and you drag the e-tron Mark V into the ship tree, you will get a lot of you will get a lot of different parameters you can compare. So what we are going to compare is in the under structure there should be a capacity. Yeah, sorry, I didn't see it. Yeah, okay. So there's a you can check for compare capacity, and you can go down to propulsion, and you can check ship warp speed, which for some reason is bugged. Okay. Well, let's just keep it with that. So what you can see is that the e-tron Mark V has double the space, and what was supposed to happen if we checked the warp speed, we would see that it also has a lower warp speed while having there are also some specialized T1s which are a little bit better, and the Galante faction has the most specialized ships. They have one. They have a ship called Krios that is made for minerals. They have a ship called Epital that is made for planetary commodities, basically PI, and you have a ship that is called the Miasmos for hauling ore. And the Minmatar also has a specialized ship that is called the Hoarder, and it's there for transporting ammo. Yeah, not really a good ammo truck. It's a really bad ammo truck. Again, what is common with the T1s is that they can get the job done, but they are they're bad at what they do. The reason why it's not a good ammo truck is because nobody can access the ammo truck. It's only the hauler himself who can take out ammo from it. However, a fleet hangar, everyone can take from it, so they become a good ammo truck for like operational support. And that brings us to the Tech 2 ships, which you see right above there, which are a huge upgrade from the T1s. They are the two different kinds of Tech 2 ships are actually very, very different. So they should almost be like their own category. However, they share skills, so I guess that's why they group them. But for the Galante, you have the first, which you call a blockade runner, and that is the Viator. Their specialty is that they have very low cargo capacity, but are super, super fast. And they can be cloaked, and nobody can cargo scan them. They are quite specialized ships, so I'm not gonna go too much in detail about them, but they are made for hauling valuable low volume stuff. Now, the really holy grail of hauling is the deep space transports, and for Galante it's the Okator. And these ships have, first off, they have what is called a fleet hangar, which is a very large cargo hold that you cannot rig or modify it by any means besides skilling up the transport ship skills itself. However, it's already very large, and other people can access it. So they can become very good ammo trucks. If you have an operation, you can have like one deep space transport nearby, and everyone can come and just take ammo out of it. They also have a significantly better tank than any of the T1s. It's about 3 times as much tank. They are a bit faster than the large variants. So the Okator is a bit faster and more nimble than the Itron Mark V, while still having a larger cargo hold. And they also have it cannot cloak the same way. It can use cloak, and you should use a cloak, but there is a difference between a covered-up cloak and a regular cloak. The Viator can use a cover-up cloak. That means it can cloak while in warp. The Okator can only use a regular cloak. That being said, it has a warp core strength bonus, which also means that if you go into more dangerous space like low sec, it is a very good safety to have. Next, if you follow the line to the right, you get to capital ships, and here you find freighters. And there are essentially 2 types of freighter. A freighter is just a very, very huge ship for hauling. They have an enormous cargo hold. For Galante, it's the Obelisk, and they are also very, very. They are very big, not not too tanky, and they are in general super slow. And then you have the Tech 2 version, which is a very, very expensive capital ship, and that is the Jump Raiders, which have a capital jump drive that can let them actually jump between systems from a station to a station without using stargates. So they are the main way of transporting through to nullsec. What you can take home from this course is that do not haul into nullsec at all. It's really, really dangerous. I'm gonna tell in 102 how to do it, but in general you should expect to lose your ship if you ever take a hauler to nullsec. There is one faction in this game that is specialized in like industry, and that is the ore faction. So if people could go to ore, you can choose it up in the upper left, where you can choose what faction. No, Aquil, you cannot. It's actually very easy to decloak a CovOps hauler and straight out kill it. There are many ways to do this, and in general they involve bubbles and dirtying up a gate, so they can't warp because they're in a bubble. And I'm gonna talk about jump freighters in Freighters 101 tomorrow. So yeah, jump freighters are beyond the scope of this course. Did I answer your question, Akhil? The answer is very easy, no. It's just not. There isn't actually any safe way to do hauling into nullsec. The safest is jump freighters, and even doing jump freighters, there's a quite risk involved actually. Okay, so if we go to the factions of ore, they have two specialized hauling ships. Again, they are quite specialized. I'm not going to say so much about them, but you have the Orca, which is a ship that is specialized in essentially supporting mining operations. So it has some refitting and a lot of space, and some space specialized for hauling ore. And then you have a ore freighter that is called the Bowhead, and it is a freighter that has a very, very small capacity for general goods, but it has the largest capacity in the game for ships, and specifically assembled ships. If we go back to the slides, I linked them in okay, yeah, the main difference between a fleet hangar and a ship maintenance bay. Well, a fleet hangar, as I said before, is that they are they're just general purpose cargo hold that you can put anything in. The specialty with the fleet hangar is that they can also be accessed by your corp or your fleet members, and you can set you can set that as a you can set that as a option in the fleet hangar if other people should be able to access it. And that is very useful, as someone pointed out here, ammo truck. If you're like doing an operation, you can have one hauler with a fleet hangar, most likely a deep space transport, and then everyone can access and go in there and get ammo, maybe nanite paste if they need that, and so on. A ship maintenance bay is a cargo hold that can only have ships in it, and they can have assembled ships. Is the roll bonus something with jump fatigue? What is that? Okay, so all holders have a bonus to jump fatigue. It's not that interesting to related to actually hauling. It's more that if you are using a hauler in support of operations, a hauler receives only 1/10 of the jump fatigue of the rest of the operation. So when you use a Titan to bridge, which is it's an advanced mechanic in mainly nullsec, I think, and lowsec. So where you can, you can use a capital jump drive to get between systems without using stargates. Yeah, so the Velator that can use a CovOps cloak can also use a CovOps jump drive. So in Black Ops operations, that ship will receive less jump fatigue. That is the idea, but it's not that important when you are choosing a hauler. So some basic do and don'ts when hauling. I would say that most hauling should be done in high sec. And yeah, as I said here, low, null, and wormhole will be covered in 102 class. One point that is important is you should not use your main while your main is in a major corporation, because of groups like Pirate and other high-sec war decking groups. Your corporation is almost always at war with these guys, and all they do is just camp major trade hubs and the roads between major trade hubs. So it's never safe to hold, because they use a lot of tactics to pin down a hauler, and if they are prepared for it, there is no way you can actually hold safely with them around. The CovOps cloak is probably the safest you can do, but still, even then, there is an unnecessary risk associated with it. And the reason is why it's an unnecessary risk is because either people, the big standard is to either make a holding alt, so you do it yourself, or you make a contract so other people can do the holding for you, or even not contract, you can ask people you know that are holding a lot to do it for you, for a small fee, of course. What you're saying there, Taiga, is something I'm gonna touch upon more on the 102 class in the practical, to be precise, because we're gonna go through ship scanners and cargo scanners there. For now, I can just say you can always assume you're scanned. This just you be careful around in 0.5 and 0.6 systems. What I mean by that is that every system in EVE has a security status, and the security status, first off, it discriminates between the low, null, wormhole, and high sec, but also within a high sec, there is a difference in how fast Concord, a police force that essentially is there to protect players in high sec, how fast they respond. So in a 0.5 system and a 0.6 system, Concord responds much slower than in the other higher systems. So right now I'm in Stackmon, and if I don't know, depending on what system you're in, you can always see the a number next to the system, and that basically tells you the security level. There are some special systems. There are a lot more than what is mentioned here, but these are the really major ones. There's a system called Uedama, a system called Niarja, and the undocks of every major trade hub in this game are very, very dangerous places to be. For a starting hauler, like in a basic course, the way you protect yourself is by tanking your ship, do not AFK or autopilot the ship, insure it in case shit goes bad anyway, and do not haul too expensive stuff. I'm going to touch a bit more about that later. And also another safety is if you're doing a operation and you're hauling for that operation, let's say a mining operation, you should stay aligned. So why do you tank your ship? Well, you might survive a suicide gank attempt, but it's mostly to make yourself a non-desirable target, because even though a lot of people in this game actually just gank for fun, so also a lot of them wants to do it for profit. So if you're not a profitable target, there's a lot less chance that they will attack you. So by today's number, you should have about 11k effective HP per 50 million ISK of value you are hauling. So 4,500 ISK per effective HP. When you are fitting a ship for tank, you should prioritize buffer over active modules, because a lot of the ganks happen by very fast locking ships that do high alpha damage. Yeah, 11,000 effective HP. Effective HP is what you see if you open your fitting window. You will see a defense, and then it would say a number there about how much XP hit points you are expected to have in your ship. Did you understand, Silver? Yeah. So I hope you guys have been on the tanking classes that's been going on this week, because I'm not gonna go too much into explaining what a buffer tank is and what is a active tank. And I'm not that, I'm not going to show that many modules either, because there are so many different ways to go about tanking your ship. But the normal way to do the normal way to tank is by using shield extenders, and because of the size of the haulers, the large shield extender is the most used tanking model. So right now I put a kind of harsh restriction on where and what you should haul. Like I said, try to stay in high sec and with a non-uni character, or not your main, which is in a corporation. I'm not gonna talk about sig penalty and locking time at all, because it doesn't affect hauling too much. But I'm gonna explain why in 102. So yes. Courier contracts. Right now I put very, very strict restrictions on where and what you should haul. You should not, as I said, you should not haul high value stuff. Like, because of the low tank of T1 industrials, you're most likely never gonna be able to haul something worth more than 100 million. It's just a limitation of how much tank you can put on the ship. So if something is valuable, if it has to be hauled into dangerous place, null sec, wormhole, low sec, you should use someone else to do it, at least for the in the basic setup. So you could ask experienced haulers in your corp, use professionals, Red Frog Freight, PushX, Next Express. So what I'm gonna go through with you guys right now is how to make a contract. There are quite a few ways to make a contract, but I'm gonna go with the way where you open the Neocom menu again. You go to business, you go to contracts, and when you open it, you will see how many contracts you can make, and any contracts that are active or possible assigned to your corporation. What you do then is you can hit the button at the bottom of the window that says create contract, and it will take you to the contract window where you choose the contract type. You can choose courier, then you can choose the availability, if it's private or if it's public. Usually when you want to send it to a corporation, you don't choose my corporation or my alliance, you still use private, and you just type in the name of the corporation. I don't really know why it's done like that, but that's the general way to do it. So if you guys hit next, you should see everything you have in the current station you're in, if you're in a station. I hope people are in a station. You should be docked up by now. Is there anyone now who is not in the contract window on the pick items 2 out of 4? Can you X up? Okay, Ersin, can you explain where you fell off? Did you find the contract window? All right. At the bottom of the contract window, there is a create contract. A create contract button. Okay. So in the first 1 out of 4, you choose courier for the type. Courier is the contract where someone is moving something for you. And then you choose either private or public, depending on what you wish to do with it. So the next one. All right, great. So the next window, you can access this contract window by many different ways. So this is just one way to get to this window. So here you can choose what you want to move in the contracts. Then you hit next. In this window, you can also split stacks by just right-clicking a stack, and then you can choose to split it. So in case you're setting up remotely, this is quite useful. And then you come to the 3 out of 4 step, which is where you set first a destination, where you say ship to, and you put the name of the system and the station you want something shipped to. And then you see you have 2 values you have to fill. One is the reward and the other is the collateral. I'm going to cover the reward first, which is what the hauler will get for completing your contract. This value might be a bit high for new players, but you can essentially put what you want there. However, there is I would say there's like a guideline of what you should put there. This is a good calculator for setting a reward. So it's based on how many jumps and how big volume and whether or not the package goes to low sec. And the second thing you have to set, and it's very important that this one is correct, and that is the collateral. Collateral is a in-game escrow to make sure that if your stuff gets lost on the way, either because the hauler gets killed or he decides to just take your stuff, or he doesn't finish the contract in time, you will get this value, the value of the items paid out to you. So in fact, it ensures that the hauler takes the whole responsibility for the hauling. So you don't, if he fucks up, you don't lose. You at least you don't lose the value, because you will get the value returned of the items in ISK. So usually you set the collateral about just a little bit higher than the evaluation of your items. And then there is a expiration date, that is how long you want the contract to stay there. And then you have a days to complete. The normal for public contracts is 7 days to complete, but you can set whatever you want there. And a description is there if you want to say something to the hauler, like be careful, or you want to tell what's inside, or yeah, it's essentially a communication to the one who picks up the contract. If you have filled all of this, you will get a final step for the 4. You don't have to do it, but which will essentially just show you a overview of everything you've typed in this far, so you can check that everything is correct. Now I just linked you a example of a contract I finished not too long ago, but just to show it, so you will get something along these lines where it says the volume of how much is getting moved. You see a reward, and you see a collateral. And also the contract will say if the route takes you through low sec or high sec or whatever. However, this is dependent on your setting of route in the game. So if you say prefer less secure, it will most likely show it goes through no sec. So you have to choose prefer safe before you look at the contract. Are there any questions about setting up contracts? Yeah, that's a good resource. So in this course, I'm going to show examples of fits for T1 haulers. As I said, T1 haulers aren't really very suited for the task, so it's a bit unfortunate. But this is at least what you can do if you're hauling something that is low of value. If you click the link I linked there with it will show 4 fits for the sigil, which is the Amar T1 hauler. So based on different principles, you can do a lot of different. There's a lot of different ways to fit the sigil. What you can see here, though, is that the most efficient way to fit it almost always involves a shield tank, because the lows can be used for, if you, let's say we look at the one fit in the upper left corner that says sigil level 4 distribution. The low slots are used for mostly used for cargo expanders or faster align time. So here you see expanded cargo hold, which is a module that increases how much cargo a regular cargo hold can hold. This does not go for the special versions of cargo holds like ship maintenance bays and fleet hangars. There is a very good safety trick for ensuring safety of holders, which is fitting a micro warp drive and a Tech 2 cloak, which you can see in the fit below, which says expanded cargo hold cloak micro warp drive. You should check out this trick by yourself. There's a lot of resources about it. There's a lot of videos on YouTube on it. So you can just Google it and there are a lot of people explaining it really well. What it essentially allows you to do is reduce the vulnerability, the time you're vulnerable. You see some other fits here, all based on either reducing the align time or increasing the tank. And there's even one down there. It says a stable warp core, which is very useful to do when you're going into low sec, because warp core stabilizers lets you warp even if you're pointed. If someone is using a module to tackle you. Yeah, so I was about to say, any questions? And I can start by looking at your fit, Artus. So I see you have a cloak and a micro warp drive. If you can use that trick, that is what I recommend to have on every hauler. So that is a very good setup. Yeah, it's a good question you set up there, Nina. A single warp stab actually protects quite well, because of how gates work. You do end up most likely, even if you run into a camp, they're gonna be too far away to be able to scram you, which will negate 2 warp core stabs. 1 warp core stab can negate a point. Webbing is definitely a freighter class, and will be the main focus of the freighter class. Yeah. I will answer your question soon, Harold. Let me just finish this fit. Artus, this is a very good fit. Like, you have the micro warp drive cloak for safety. You have I guess because of fitting reasons, you can't fit a shield extender there. You have a invulnerability field instead, which means this Prorator has quite a low tank, but this is a Tech 2 ship, which doesn't even need to use the micro warp drive cloak trick, as it is a blockade runner, so you can just cloak up. So the tank doesn't matter too much on this ship, as long as you can stay cloaked. And then you have quite a few cargo extenders to get a bigger cargo, so it's perfect fit, I would say. And for the Harald question, I would definitely recommend the Epital when you are new to the game and don't have a high skill point hauler. The Epital is quite surpassed by deep space transport. As I said, deep space transport is just really, really good, but there is quite a big skill point investment in doing that. So Epital is the way to go if you don't want to invest a lot of skill points. I linked a Epital fit that I use for I have a PI Empire, a lot of characters around there, so this is like a good, a useful fit I use. Yeah, so Impel, this deep space transport is exactly what is the next step. But the Epital is actually one of the better T1s. It does fulfill its role, because PI materials, unless you're doing factory planets, you don't haul more than 100 million at a time. So it usually falls within acceptable risk reward. Any more questions? Quill, that's a very good question, because if you own the system you're in, like if let's say it's PC9, you're in a let me check what corporation you're Eve University, yeah. So if you're in NoSec campus, and you're on the Mumble, there people have a very good control of who is in the system and who is in the system nearby, so you could actually use the Epital there closely. However, I would expect to lose it at least once, so you should not use too expensive modules, and definitely not a very expensive pod. Well, expensive pod goes for nullsec in general. You should not undock in nullsec in an expensive pod. The CovOps, well, I assume CovOps freighter, you mean a blockade runner. The blockade runner will have too small of a cargo hold in most cases for PI management. So PI and null is one of the times where you just insure a Epital and hope for the best and try to use scouts and stuff very well. Yeah, Tiger, you're correct. I just said 100 million as a absolute max. If you EFT warrior this very hard, you can make a Epital that has that much effective HP. You can, but that's for advanced EFT warriors, and I would still consider it safer to use the cloak micro warp drive trick, which you can use by the one I linked here. All right, I see I went like half an hour over the time, so the 102 class is literally going to be back to back, but I just need a 10-minute break.